Welcome to Just Telling Stories. Without further ado, let's get into the story. Taylor Swift had always been the queen of love songs. Her music had made millions of hearts flutter and break all over the world. Yet she had always kept her own love life private, away from the prying eyes of the media. However, there was one secret that she had been keeping hidden for years: her deep, intense, and unrequited love for actor Chris Hemsworth. It all started many years ago when Taylor had first seen Chris on the big screen. She had been mesmerized by his rugged good looks, his piercing blue eyes, and his deep, resonant voice. She had watched all his movies and followed his career closely, admiring his talent and his charm from afar. However, it wasn't until they had met in person that Taylor had realized the extent of her feelings for him. They had been introduced at a Hollywood party and had hit it off immediately. Chris had been charming, funny, and kind, and Taylor had felt a spark of attraction that had left her breathless. They had danced together that night, and Taylor had felt like she was in a fairy tale. She had imagined a future with Chris, where they would travel the world together, make beautiful music, and share a love that would last a lifetime. But then she had found out that Chris was married. His wife Elsa was a stunning model and actress who had captured Chris's heart long before Taylor had even met him. Taylor had felt heartbroken, but she had also known that she could never act on her feelings. She respected Chris's marriage and knew that it would be wrong to come between him and his wife. So she had buried her feelings deep inside, never letting anyone know the true extent of her love for Chris. She had written countless songs about him, pouring out her heart and soul into her music, but she had never revealed the true inspiration behind her lyrics. Years had passed, and Taylor had become one of the biggest stars in the world. She had won countless awards, sold millions of records, and had a legion of devoted fans who hung on her every word. But despite her success, she had never forgotten about Chris. She had seen him from time to time at Hollywood events, and each time her heart had skipped a beat. She had admired him from afar, always keeping her distance and never letting on about her true feelings. But then, something unexpected had happened. Chris's marriage had hit a rough patch, and there were rumors that he and Elsa were having problems. Taylor had heard the whispers and had felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance that Chris could be hers. She had tried to push the thought out of her mind, knowing that it was wrong to wish for someone else's relationship to fail. But she couldn't help the way she felt. She had always believed that she and Chris were meant to be together, and the thought of him being with anyone else was unbearable. She had written a new album, pouring all her emotions into the songs. Each track was a reflection of her love for Chris, her longing for him, and her pain at not being able to be with him. She had poured her heart and soul into the music, hoping that somehow Chris would hear it and understand. But she knew that it was a long shot. Chris was the kind of guy who valued his privacy and kept his personal life out of the public eye. He was devoted to his family, and Taylor knew that he would never do anything to hurt his wife or their children. So she had resigned herself to the fact that her love for Chris would always be unrequited. She had tried to move on, focusing on her music and her career, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake off the feelings she had for him. One day, Taylor received an invitation to attend a charity event in Los Angeles. It was a star-studded affair, and she knew that Chris would be there. She hesitated for a moment, wondering if she should go, but then she decided to take the chance. She wanted to see him, even if it was just from a distance. When she arrived at the event, she was greeted by a sea of flashing cameras and screaming fans. She smiled and waved, but her heart was pounding in her chest. She scanned the crowd, hoping to catch a glimpse of Chris, but he was nowhere to be seen. She mingled with the other guests, making small talk and posing for photos, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of restlessness that was gnawing at her. She wanted to see Chris, to talk to him, to tell him how she felt. As the night wore on, Taylor began to lose hope. She was about to leave when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Taylor, hi!" It was Chris. She turned around and her heart skipped a beat. He looked even more handsome than she remembered, and she felt a surge of emotion that made her feel dizzy. "Chris, hi," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. They hugged, and Taylor felt his strong arms around her. She wanted to stay in that moment forever, to forget about everything else and just be with him. "How have you been?" Chris asked, smiling at her. "I've been good, thanks. How about you?" she replied, trying to sound casual. "I've been busy, but things are good. Elsa and the kids are doing great too," he said, looking at her with a warmth that made her heart ache. Taylor felt a pang of jealousy at the mention of Elsa, but she tried to hide it. She didn't want Chris to think that she was trying to come between him and his family. "That's great to hear. How's your work going?" she asked, trying to change the subject. They talked for a few more minutes, and Taylor felt like she was in a dream. She was talking to Chris Hemsworth, the man she had been secretly in love with for years, and he was being kind and friendly to her. But then, all too soon, it was time for them to part ways. Chris had to go back to his wife and kids, and Taylor had a busy schedule to keep. As she watched him walk away, Taylor felt a sense of loss that was almost unbearable. She knew that she could never have him, that their love could never be. But she couldn't help the way she felt. She went back to her hotel room and lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She felt a sense of emptiness that was hard to describe, a feeling of longing that seemed to consume her. She knew that she had to move on, that she couldn't keep holding on to a love that would never be. But the thought of letting go was too painful. She had invested so much of herself in this love, and she didn't know how to live without it. Days turned into weeks, and Taylor tried to keep busy. She went on tour, performed at concerts, and signed autographs for fans. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake off the feelings she had for Chris. One day she received a message from him. It was a simple message, just a few words, but it made her heart skip a beat. "Hey Taylor, it was great to see you at the charity event. I hope we can catch up again soon." Taylor read the message over and over, trying to decipher its meaning. Did Chris still have feelings for her, or was he just being polite? She decided to reply cautiously. "Hi Chris, it was great to see you too. Maybe we can grab coffee sometime and catch up properly?" She waited anxiously for his reply, her heart racing. When it came, she felt a sense of relief. "Sure, that sounds good. Let's make plans soon." Taylor smiled to herself, feeling a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance for them. They arranged to meet up the following week at a coffee shop near Chris's home. Taylor was nervous as she drove there, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. She didn't know what to expect, but she knew that she had to take the chance. When she arrived, Chris was already there, waiting for her. He smiled when he saw her, and she felt a rush of emotion that made her feel dizzy. They ordered coffee and sat down at a small table facing each other. Taylor felt as though she was in a dream, as though nothing else in the world mattered except for this moment. They talked for hours, catching up on old times and reminiscing about the past. Taylor felt as though they were the only two people in the world, that nothing else mattered except for their love. As the sun began to set, Chris took her hand in his and looked into her eyes. "Taylor, I know that we've been friends for a long time, but I have to tell you something. I still have feelings for you, and I want to be with you." Taylor's heart skipped a beat. She had been waiting to hear those words for years, and now that they had finally been spoken, she didn't know what to do. I don't know what to say," she stammered, feeling overwhelmed. Chris leaned in closer, his eyes searching hers. "Say that you feel the same way. Say that you want to be with me too." Taylor felt a surge of emotion that made her heart ache. She wanted to be with Chris more than anything in the world, but she knew that it was complicated. "Chris, I do have feelings for you, but you're married and you have kids. I don't want to come between you and your family." Chris looked at her, his eyes full of understanding. "I know, Taylor, but Elsa and I have been having problems for a while now. We've been talking about separating, and I think it's the best thing for both of us. I want to be with you, if you'll have me." Taylor felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had been so afraid of coming between Chris and his family, but now that he had given her his blessing, she felt as though a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Chris, I want to be with you too, but we have to be careful, for the sake of your kids." Chris nodded, his eyes full of love. "I understand, Taylor. We'll take things slow and we'll make sure that everyone's okay. But I love you, and I want to be with you." Taylor smiled, feeling as though all of her dreams had come true. She had always wanted to be with Chris, to share her life with him, and now it was finally happening. They held hands and talked late into the night, making plans for their future together. Taylor felt as though the world was full of possibilities, and she knew that as long as she had Chris by her side, she could face anything. Over the next few months, Chris and Taylor continued to see each other, taking things slow and making sure that everyone was okay. Chris talked to his children about his decision to separate from their mother, and although it was difficult, they understood. Taylor and Chris spent a lot of time together, going on dates and taking romantic trips. They were happy, and they knew that they were meant to be together. Eventually, Chris's divorce was finalized, and he and Taylor moved in together. It wasn't always easy, but they were committed to making their relationship work. They supported each other through everything, and they knew that they could face any challenge as long as they had each other. Years later, as they sat together on the porch of their home, watching the sunset, Taylor couldn't help but feel grateful for everything that had happened. She had been afraid to take a chance on love, but she had done it, and it had turned out better than she could have ever imagined. As she leaned her head on Chris's shoulder, she knew that she had found her soulmate, and that nothing could ever tear them apart. They had overcome so much to be together, and they had come out the other side stronger than ever. Taylor smiled, feeling content and happy. She knew that she had made the right decision when she had taken a chance on love, and she was grateful every day for the life that she and Chris had built together.